Greetings, and my name's Terry Messenger, and welcome to this section where we are getting into some really kick-butt techniques. This next technique I have renamed and rebranded. I have called it the Rapid Trauma Stress Release. Now, this is possibly one of the many techniques that I utilize, and it would have to be one of the most strongest and most powerful modalities for eliminating some of the really harsh trauma and stress related patterns. So what was Bandler and Grinder thinking when they came up with the idea of a movie theatre for taking out a bad memory, releasing a negative situation, eliminating a pattern that may have been really enforced inside the nervous system of the person? Well, firstly, when people have been traumatized or stressed, that does get trapped in the emotion and in the muscles of where that memory field is contained. Now, our memory in our body, which is our subconscious mind incidentally, is always there. It will not leave until something is done about it. Unlike counselling and any other forms of psychotherapy, counselling may help to get the person to process the problem. However, it will not eliminate that powerful feeling from the muscle. What NLP does in this specific therapy model is it will delete this from the mind to muscle memory. So Bandler and Grinder came up with this movie screen idea. The movie screen idea is when you use two safe cue pictures. So you may get your client or yourself, for example, to think of a time in your life when you were feeling really happy, when you were feeling at peace, when you were feeling good. Now, of course, as you know, I have harnessed 6 of the human needs that if you choose to utilize those as your anchors with your clients, you certainly cannot go wrong. The most important part is that you get them to acknowledge a great state. So a great state means that they are feeling happy, free, and they are in a place where they are comfortable. The way the Fast Phobia cure is actually designed is so that there are 2 safe cue pictures. There is one at the beginning, which is usually before the event where the person had their trauma, and then another one at the end of it. Now, this is where I have become a little bit creative and made some changes. So it's important for you to know the changes that I have made in this industry so that you, as a disclaimer, can use your own discretion of how you would like to go about this pattern. So let me talk about the traditional NLP way first. So you'll have 2 cue pictures. One safe cue picture before the trauma and one safe cue picture after. So it doesn't particularly have to be where they're excited or feeling confident or full of empowerment, as long as they're feeling safe and good and reasonably happy. So in this Fast Phobia cure, you'll have one picture, usually the original one will be before the event, and then the other one is after, placed on the right hand side of the movie screen. Now it's like this, if you picture a great big white movie screen in front of your face, and then you have one great picture right there at the beginning and one great picture right there at the end. You can then dress it up in color, 3D, add music, really make it so that it's strong and compelling. However, what happens is the negative image, which is the trauma or stress, is then placed in the middle. Now, what is important in this, and let me explain it to you, is a couple of things. It is called submodalities. Now, submodalities is simply the way we have coded those pictures as memories. After all, that's all it is now, a memory. So the way that you do this is you create the images in your mind and you see it as it is. Sometimes you may see it in color, sometimes you may see it in black and white. The other element, which is most important, is association and disassociation. Now let me teach you on this, because this is a very powerful modality that you can use for many, many other things as well in your life. Now, association, that is when a person, when they're talking to you, they may be talking to you about a problem they had a year ago, and yet you can tell by the way that they're looking, by their movements and the words that they're saying, that they're still associated in it as if it is now. Whereas you can tell if they have removed themselves from the situation. They're kind of now on the outside of it. They're looking at it a whole lot more objectively. This is obviously a much better place to be in. Now, just remember that our use of association and disassociation needs to be utilized with a lot of care, because there are some people that have psychological problems to do with association and disassociation. So remember, we are utilizing this as a specific technique so that we can control the pain, and we know when to be in the picture and we know when to be out of it. Now let me give you a little bit of a clue about disassociation. Let's just say you go to the dentist, and I can tell you a little story to back this one up. So I went to the dentist to have my teeth cleaned. Now, sometimes dentists like to go about cleaning teeth in a bit of a hurry. You know, they just get those little needles and they start pulling away at your teeth, and you'll even find that there's blood, and they're sucking up the blood and they're removing all of the toxins in your mouth. And I know that this is not a really good image. However, this is how it goes. They're cleaning your teeth, they're cleaning the gums, and they're sucking up all of the toxic waste. So usually they'll give a needle, they'll offer a needle so that you can eliminate pain. So on this specific occasion, I refused to have the needle because I wanted to make sure that the dentist was going to take extra care, and even if they had to take a little bit more time, it would actually mean less blood, and it would be a situation where they were really being very careful with my teeth and gums. So I refused the injection. They could not believe it, and as a result, I used a disassociation as a method to remove myself from any kind of pain. Now, this is very good if you are in any kind of fear, or if you are going to even experience literal physical pain. So let me tell you what you do. So while I lay there on the dentist bench, and I was just laying there and they were looking into my mouth, I then took it upon myself to rise up. After all, our imagination is so powerful, right? So as I rose up, and I was looking at the back of the dentist's head. So I was like, you know, this guardian angel looking from behind the dentist, making sure that dentist was taking good care of me. And in the meantime, I had no problem. They were totally shocked. They could not believe it. However, let me tell you, it absolutely works. Now, there is two kinds of disassociation you can utilize in this method, and I was explaining this to a person who was going through childbirth. The first element of disassociation is where you're taking yourself outside of your physical body, looking at the back of yourself or looking down at yourself, and this is removing pain to a certain degree. The next element is when you are actually removing yourself from your imagination. So you're rising up above your imagination, almost as if you're looking down at your subconscious, in which your subconscious is looking down at you. So that means you are 2 places removed. Now, this is for extreme pain. So you need a really good imagination to do this. However, because I've got such a great creative imagination, I can do this. I've become very friendly and accustomed with my subconscious. So by actually being the subconscious, that part of my imagination, looking down at myself, if I really needed to, which I haven't had to do this, thankfully to God and the universe, then I would rise up one above that, which I can actually imagine it just for the fun of it, and look at my subconscious higher self looking down at me. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, so now let's talk about the fast phobia cure. So what will happen is the person will come with their problem. Now, their problem, of course, as they talk about it, it is important to keep the problem so that they don't get too grounded in too much talk. And you've already been trained at how to keep this conversation really clean. So it is your role to guide them and say, okay, what I want you to know is your imagination, your memory, your higher self, however you want to put that to the other person, is so much more intelligent and remembers more than you can possibly even begin to tell me. So what I'd like you to do is just trust that part of your mind to take care of this. Can I ask you to just trust that your subconscious mind knows what it needs to deal with? Now, sometimes they want to talk just because you tell them that they don't have to. It's like a reverse kind of psychology. And really, it is your role to get this over and done with really quick. So to humour them, say, look, all you need to do is use your imagination to close your eyes. Now, I want you to think about 2 images. 2 images, one perhaps before that trauma and one after. Now, here's the disclaimer. Because I have dealt with so many people over the 13 years of my practice, I have discovered that sometimes trauma comes from when they're at birth. Sometimes trauma comes where they can't even remember something good. I have dealt with a lot of people over time, and I have come to know that the imagination, the subconscious mind, is so creative. So here's the disclaimer. I simply ask them to actually think about 2 memories. 2 memories, it doesn't matter when they happened, and one of them is going to be the first one that's going to be set up at the beginning of the movie, and the other one is the last. So if you can understand, I've made that slight change to this modality, and I've done that to fit in with the many people I have dealt with over the years. Okay, so now the important things is 2 great memories. Okay, picture one on the left hand side of the screen and one on the right. Got it? Great. Now, it's your job to really get that movie up and make it bright, make it compelling, make it so good. And remember, it's about your words too, the way you go about this. And it's all in your script. So you can read it out from your script. However, me giving you this and teaching it to you is going to give you such a deep understanding. You're going to be able to carry this technique out with great confidence, posture, knowing that you're about to help someone tremendously. Okay, so here it is. They're sitting in the chair, they're imagining they're in the movie theatre. They're looking up at the left-hand side of the screen to that first movie. And then on the far right, they're looking and they can see the end movie. Now, the actual negative movie is the one they really came to see you about, but that has not yet been put up on the screen. We're going to save that one for later. So as you get your client to sit comfortably, get them into a nice relaxed state, this is when you ask them to be creative, trust their imagination, and let's go up to the top behind the plexiglass where they're shooting the movie. So they're going to take control. So this is the disassociation element, you guys. So as they go all the way up behind the plexiglass, I even get really creative and make some sound. So I'll say, okay, you can hear that plexiglass, and I'll tap. And so that tapping noise gives them this image, because if they're audible, they can hear that plexiglass. So there they are behind the plexiglass. There they are playing the movies, the left safe one, the right safe one, and then you hand them the movie that's going into the middle. Now this is the one that they were telling you about before you started the technique. They told you that they had this specific trauma, and you came to discover that there is something that they need to remove, and this is it, and you're about to play it. Now this is the movie that's going to go smack bang in the middle of the two good movies. However, this is the part where you need to be really very, very super vigilant about getting your client to watch the back of their own head. So because they're up the top, get them to look at the back of their own head as if, well, yep, I can see myself. There I am watching the movie, and they're watching the movie of the movie that is their trauma, is that specific occasion, is that time that you know they need to delete from their DNA. It may be the phobia, it may be the trauma, it may be whatever it is. It could even be a very heavy addiction. Whatever it is, you're looking at that most intense movie. So as you're getting them to look at the back of their head, you can even tap on the plexiglass, telling them to watch the back of their head. And as they are watching the back of their head, which is watching that movie, you see, it's 2 times removed. Now, if it is really dreadful, you could 3 times remove them, like I said in the beginning, where they're watching themselves, their imagination, their higher self, watching themselves, watching the movie. So that's when it becomes really disassociated. So you see, the whole point of this exercise is about disassociation and association. Now let's get to the association part. So the movie ends and they're still up the back watching the back of their own head. Now they turn their eyes to the right hand screen. This is where that safe movie is. This is where it's great. This is where it's happy. And then you get them to float into it. So they're going to go into that movie and associate. You see that? So very important. So they're associating with that good movie. They're feeling that happiness. They're feeling that safe joy. And then you rewind it very fast all the way back to the movie on the other side, which happens to be the happy movie. Now you see what happened, and as you take them back up to the plexiglass, behind the plexiglass, you see what happens is that they were associating in the end movie, and then you rewound them real fast across to the other side, and they were associating into that movie too, and then you brought them back up. Now you do this 3 times. If you do it 5 times, there is a theory that it actually wipes out the memory of the subconscious for them to even remember that happening. So they call that kind of an amnesia effect. So in some cases, I have used it 5 times, and that's when I feel that it's really quite severe. So you've just got to trust your own instinct on this. So the main thing is, the words that you use too. Well, we're going to do that again. We're going to run that process again. So as you tell them you're going to run that process, you're going to associate into that happy movie, only you're going to feel 10 times better this time. You may like to say something like that. So they know by the time they get into that movie, they're going to feel 10 times better. In fact, every time you go into that movie that is good, it's going to feel even better and it's going to multiply. These are all suggestions. So as you take them into that association, there they are. Now they're going to rewind through that negative trauma. Zip, so fast. And so that just rewinds that whole movie all the way backwards. Doesn't make sense, deleting it from the subconscious. Here they are on that safe cue movie on the other side, feeling good, 10 times better, moving up behind the plexiglass again. Sometimes I make a suggestion that the 2 movies are closing in over the top of the middle movie, so the middle movie is almost disappearing. Can you see how this is working? So you are associating them into that good movie. You're rewinding backwards that negative movie, and that's going backwards so fast that the subconscious mind is wiping it. And then you're going to the safe cue picture on the left, back up to the top, and here you are. So 3 to 5 times is really great. And then the movie finishes. It's a good ending. And of course, then you want to make sure that this is great for them. So you future pace them. What's this like for you? Is this good? Maybe you can even see the curtain rising and them in the future looking so much better, feeling so much freer. And whether you do that or whether you just chat to them, you ask them to come back, open their eyes, and perhaps say to them, well, what do you think? Do you think it's going to be good for you now that you've let go of that old problem? See how I've used specific wording though, and those words of now that you've let that go, that old problem, wasn't it? So do you think this is going to be good? What are going to be some of the better things that are going to happen in your life because you've let that go now? And as they answer you, you're future pacing them. And a lot of it is your words and your understanding about what is important about this whole technique. Association, disassociation, and I often call it the superhero, because the superhero has a very good beginning to the movie. It's fine. And then there's a challenge, and then there's the war and something to conquer. And of course, then at the end, the superhero wins and is victorious. I trust you have enjoyed this segment, and I look forward to coming back to you in the next section.